Hello. I'm breaking a kind of cardinal rule of filming videos by having this big garish window behind me, but this is where I'm sitting right now, and I don't really want to get up. So, um, I still haven't shaved, by the way, as you can tell. But we'll get there someday. Growing up, when I was growing up, I was in Boy Scouts. I also did Cub Scouts, and we went camping. We tried to go on camping trips every month, once a month. And I loved camping. I still love camping. It's one of my favorite things. I haven't gone in a while. I mean, it's winter time now, so it's not really great camping weather. But I'm not the outdoor boys. Rest in peace to that channel. But anyway. So I'm not really equipped for igloo camping right now. I don't really want to do that. But I grew up going camping. It was something that we used to do all the time, and me and the boys in my troop, we would always play these games, whether it's capture the flag or some imaginary, play pretend kind of game when we were younger. And but capture the flag was the one that we almost always did. But we did big capture the flag, where the flags were, you know, a mile apart or something. That's an exaggeration, maybe half a mile at most. But the point is that it was big gaps in space, in these wild, kind of rugged areas. And there were trails, and we were always told to stick to the trails. And yes, you should stick to trails. That's generally good advice. I'm not trying to condone bushwhacking when you're not equipped for it, especially. But I definitely trailblazed. And that instilled in me, I think, in my youth, a very big love, a very strong love of how I've been trying to think all day of how to put this adequately, and succinctly, but a very big love of figuring out what is the best path to take when I'm walking, and then walking. I always had so much fun looking over, this little ravine, or there's a creek, or there's a bunch of rocks, and seeing, okay, let's plan my route right here. And just in the next 10 feet, where am I going to walk? Where am I going to step? What looks the safest? What looks the best? And what looks, the most stable, or the clearest? And that was my favorite thing to do. I love doing that. I still now, anytime I go camping, I'm always having to stop myself from going wandering, because all I want to do is take some wild uncharted path, and it's just fun. It's just, for whatever reason, there's this itch in my brain that gets scratched every time I go out in the wild and kind of just walk, and it's very fun. And so I guess I forgot about that for a while, because then Death Stranding came out in whatever year Death Stranding, I think it was 2018, 2019, I don't remember when Death Stranding came out. I think it was 2019, maybe it was 2018, but Death Stranding came out. And that game came out, and it's all about walking. If you've played Death Stranding, you know that game is about walking. And eventually there are other things. You can get some vehicles and stuff like that. But it's about walking. And so I got to it a bit late, and I heard everyone was like, oh, a lot of conflicting reports about that game. Some people really liked it. Some people really didn't. They found it really boring or whatnot. And I thought, okay, let's try it out. Maybe this, the story is really compelling. And so if I'm bored, then at least I'll like the story or the characters or whatever. And I played it at least a bit. I never beat it. I played about 12, 13 hours, I think, is what my Steam has on it, my Steam account. But, and I was so shocked, because it was not the story or the characters that kept me. Although I will say that the world building is some of my favorite that I've seen in a very long time. It's so fun and unique and interesting. But it was the walking. And I actually got to the point where, as soon as I unlocked the bikes and the trucks and stuff, I was kind of bummed out, because I thought, man, I gotta stop walking now. I love walking. And the funny thing is the sort of opposite happened of what I was planning. I thought that the characters in the stories would make me stay, but ultimately my biggest issue with Death Stranding was that people would never stop talking. And it was the exposition and the story that kind of bogged me down. And more than anything, I just wanted to walk. I just wanted to walk around. And I've never had a game where I've enjoyed walking so much. A lot of other games I've enjoyed traveling, but from A to B. But walking, the act of walking, has never been a particularly fun thing in a game. But in Death Stranding, I found it so compelling to have to plan not just my big route, my huge, giant journey, but just the next 10 steps and the next, 30 feet or so. And I thought that was so wonderful for whatever reason that was just so appealing to me. And I loved it. I thought it was the best. I haven't played Death Stranding 2, so I don't know what it's changed, what's improved, or maybe got worse or whatever. I don't really know much about it other than it looks incredible, like visually. And that is another thing about the first Death Stranding. I firmly believe to this point, and if I'm this is subjective, but I firmly believe that there has never been a there's never been geography in a game that you can interact with that has looked better than Death Stranding's geography. There's something about it that I find the way that the rivers run and the rocks and everything, like it feels the most like real life of any game I've ever played personally. Which is funny because I don't even know if it's realistic actually, but it feels very grounded and very real, and I love it. I love it. It really does feel like, it takes me back to my camping days when we would go camping and hike for miles and stuff like that. But I love it, and it's just got me thinking about walking in games and how do you make traversal interesting and fun, especially when it's just walking. When you're not swinging in Spider-Man or doing parkour in Dying Light or Mirror's Edge, how do you make the traversal fun? And Death Stranding's traversal is meticulous. It's not quick, it's not speedy, it's not agile, it's meticulous. And I enjoy that. It's the same reason I enjoy playing Peak, actually, is because I like getting to a top of a hill and going, okay, where do I climb next? What is the next rock? There's something about that I find very immediately satisfying. And so it got me thinking, I wish that and this is such a grand ambition, but what would it take to make an RPG, or not an RPG, but a giant open world game? The likes of Breath of the Wild, or something huge like Assassin's Creed. I don't really like Assassin's Creed games very much, but something that size, that caliber. But how can you make the moment to moment, just walking, how can you make it the most fun? How can you make it the most interesting? And there's probably a million different ways that could be answered. There's lots of different traversal tactics or tools that one could use. And maybe that's part of it. Maybe walking isn't inherently fun by itself, but it's the little flavor that you can add to traversal that makes it interesting. But I genuinely wonder, is there a way to make walking fun? Because I think Death Stranding did it. But Death Stranding's walking is focused. So, who knows, in a different game that's not about walking, would that technique work of having to be so careful? Anyway, that was a little rambly, but just my thoughts lately as I've been walking with my legs, because I like doing it in real life and I like doing it in Death Stranding. So why don't I like doing it in Breath of the Wild? Why don't I like doing it in The Witcher? Why don't I like doing it in Cyberpunk or any of these other games that I adore? Why don't I like walking in those games? I want to like walking. I want to enjoy walking. And so it just got me thinking, as I think about games that eventually I'd like to make or see made, how can walking be fun? So if anyone has any thoughts or games that you think did just traversal really well, I'd love to hear it. I would always love to hear people's thoughts. That's the great thing about this. So, share thoughts, share your opinions. That's the fun stuff. Yeah, that's it. This is another rambling journal from me. I'm going to keep working because I actually paused my work to do this, so I should get back to work. But okay, that's it. Bye.